Hello, my friends. How are we? Happy April. I am playing with the Words of Wisdom paper collection today. I'm just going to quickly show you all these papers. They are very church, religion, background. I'm trying to think of the right word. Scripture background. So they come in handy for a lot of different ways. I'm just saying. Like for sympathy cards, for church-going friends. They're really, really pretty. They're really beautiful. This card is a miniature version of what we're going to do today. I promise it's not that hard. The tiara is the part that you've got to get your head around, but that's all right. I have a piece of cardstock that is both 6 by 11 inches. 6 inches by 11 inches. This one I have scored at 7 1/4. This one we're going to score at 1/2 inch, 1 1/2, 2 1/2, 3 1/2, 4 1/2, 5 1/2, 6 1/2, 7 1/2, 8 1/2, 9 1/2, 10 1/2. Okay, what that's going to do, obviously, with 1/2 inch at the first time, and then inch, so you end up with 1/2 inch at the end. So I have folded that in half, and now from one end I'm going to fold it away from me, which is going to cause a mountain fold and a little cube. This one is going to be folded that it is, so I've turned it over and I've folded it again, and so it's going to form a valley. If you don't know what I mean, mountains go up, valleys go down. So the best way for me to really explain this is to show you when we're done. So we've got one more fold here to do. So there's four mountains, one valley, one going down, which is going to provide us this look. So pause the video if you wish until you've got that part into your little heads, because I think that's the part that is probably the hardest. And that's it. So I am gluing my little tiny tabs because, as I mentioned, we have 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch on either end of our piece of cardstock, and every other one is an inch in between. So as I said, we've got 1/2 inch, 1 1/2, and so on and so on and so on until we've scored the whole lot. So both of our cubes are sort of in the same direction. So what we actually have is this look. So I folded it over, so our cubes are going to be touching, and you're only going to glue that little 2 panels on either side. Before you glue it down, I just wanted to show you, because that panel on the fold of our card is actually going to tuck inside. That's how it is going to keep our card closed. I have cut 4 pieces of this, as you can see, 6 inches long by 3 1/4 wide, so very, very narrow. So I wanted this little pergola thing. This is my platforms for your sentiments. Now there's a couple of ways to do this. You will see, I'm going to lay them underneath my pattern paper, but you do not. These are basically a piece of leftover cardstock from me cutting my A4 piece of cardstock down, and they are basically 1/2 inch by 1 inch long ish. It's no big deal. You just need to be aware of how big your sentiment or whatever you're going to pop up. So my whole card is like 6 inches high. On this tiara, I am going to go it straight to the edge. I'm going to chop and change it around a little bit because it's fun. So I've adhered my little platforms down, just being aware and thinking about the position I want for my sentiment. Now this is going to be pretty much the front of your card. So I've pretty much like, well, it's a little bit higher than center, because when you put a center element on the front of your card, it can be centered obviously, but it's very pleasing to the eye to be a little bit higher than that. So that's the aim of the game. So I'm just adhering all these down. So I thought it would be good just to adhere these down before anything else. So I've got my platform in, which is purely a folded piece of cardstock, and they are glued onto the front with one either side of that center seam of the center fold. So it's not going over, it's just butted up against it. And then I'm going to glue my sentiment down on, well, I have glued my sentiment down on the pieces that are popped up. As I said, you can adhere this on after, which is what I did with the smaller card, but I thought it gave it a little bit more of a finished look with it placed underneath my pattern paper. I'm just adhering some of my elements down, just being aware of where it's going to fold and where I want it to sit up slightly. The important thing to remember is to do your paper, and you'll see me do it in this video, so don't worry. You'll see me adhere my pattern paper on the back of my card before I put this piece down. Ideally, if you had a 12 by 12 paper, you would use a piece of paper that will go the whole way across. I have very little 12 by 12 paper. I have more cardstock of 12 by 12 and then pattern paper. So what I've done is I'm going to snip. This is the pattern I'm going to go. So I've taken a little bit off the bottom because I want it to be 5 3/4 high. So a little bit of a border around, and this is by 6 inches. I have cut that in half, or not in half. I've cut about 2 inches off from one side, and that is going to be hidden behind my tiara portion of the card. So I'd adhere that down. So you're going to have a gap, and I'm just going to check that I've got my pattern paper lined up, you know, so it's light, because it's a bit dark around the edges. And I have moved that right over. Do not cut your piece of cardstock too far over onto like more than 2 inches, because you're only going to glue these parts that I'm doing here. So this forms part of your cubes. Sometimes it's hard to explain how to do what I'm talking about, but I'm hoping with the video and instructions that I have left over on my blog that will be helpful. So that's the basics of the card. I have cut a piece of pattern paper 3.5 inches by 6 inches. One of those is going to go the full length of the card front, which is this piece here. And I have trimmed down what was left of the 6x6. So you will need 2 pattern pieces of paper with a 6x6 pad to do what I am about to do. So I have fussy cut the flowers out of the remaining piece, the remnants of this paper, and just adhering those with layering. So this part is glued. One of the flowers has 1 level of foam underneath it. The other one has 2 levels, so they are staggered in height. Gives it a little bit more depth, a little bit more interest. This sentiment is from the scripture pack. So we've got, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. And the Lord bless you and keep you, and the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. So it's a lovely little sentiment for church-going people that we know. This other piece I've cut out of, as I said, I needed a second piece of this paper. I have trimmed it down to 5 3/4 by 3.5 inches, and we just have a little butterfly, and I'm going to add here a little bit of glue at the base of him, and then his wings are going to be mounted up. In the paper collections, you have little cut aparts for paper fronts. Now, or card fronts. Like there's some smaller ones, and within the last year or so, Paper Rose, we've been making them, some of them a little bit bigger for card makers. Because sometimes those smaller ones, when you shrink them down for a 6x6, they're a little bit too small. They are doable, don't get me wrong, but they are a little bit small. So I have trimmed one of those out, and he has a butterfly. I've taken a piece of butterfly out of the die cuts, and he's going to be a little bit bigger. So we've put a little bit of glue down his center, and his wings are going to be slightly raised up. So it's a chunkier card, so to speak, but it's not too bad. It does fold very flat. And that's my card. That's it. So once you've got the tiara worked out in your head, it really is a simple little card to make. I would leave, as I mentioned, a link down below to my blog, which will have photos and help you hopefully. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.